Welcome to Founders Corner. This show is all about sharing impactful lessons for entrepreneurs from brilliant minds who have lived and learned through the startup journey and built amazing companies. This podcast is from Omidyar Network's emerging technology team, who invest in early-stage startups that aim to build great for-profit businesses that can change the world and create impact at scale. On today's show, we'll hear from Gina Bianchini, the founder and CEO of Mighty Networks. Gina talks all about Mighty Networks and this idea of individuals building networks around their interests to connect them with like-minded people. She also talks about her unique perspective on building a company in a competitive market, recruiting, managing her time as a CEO, and how she stays connected and still listens to users every day. Let's get started with our host and Omidyar Network partner, Shripriya Mahesh.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Founders Corner. I'm Shripriya Mahesh, and today I have with me Gina Bianchini, founder and CEO of the Mighty Network. Tell me about Mighty Bell and your vision.
Yeah, so we believe that these dedicated, we think about or talk about them as identity networks, and that fundamentally, we partner with and enable people to create these networks, or hosts as we call them, such that they can bring together, whether it's, craft hairdressers or people who are passionate about paleo diets, or someone who's trying, sets of people who are really looking at minimalism as a way of life. And our model is more similar to, call it a WordPress or a service where it's about how do we enable somebody to come in, create a network, invite members in, have those networks spread, and where members are able to connect and meet each other, whether that's members who are near each other, members who are like each other, members who care about the same topics within that interest or within that identity. And so, we don't have, for example, a huge discovery feature, or, it's not about joining Mighty Bell, or it's not about joining Mighty Networks, and then finding a network that way. It's really about how do we enable the host as an underlying platform.
Yeah. So what do you say? So, to the entrepreneurs listening to this, they'd say, you're in a pretty crowded space, right? There's Facebook that's competing with you. There are others. And it's a really interesting perspective that you're like, that doesn't matter. So how do you, to an entrepreneur that's thinking of something where there are like the 800-pound gorillas, how did you think about that?
Number one, you have to build something different. And it not just different in terms of, we have these three features, and those three features are different than a platform that has, 2 billion people on it. Not going to work.
Right.
It has to be for a different use case, a different reason that you exist. In our case, we believe in social networks and the fact that networks built around a shared interest are different than social media where you're just consuming message after message and trying to build, massive scale. That's, I think, number one. Number two is you cannot have the same business model as the monopoly in the space. So, for example, we're not advertising based. Yep. We are a SaaS company. We are really focused on, how do you enable a host of a Mighty Network to bring together their 1,000 true fans and to be able to generate revenue from those 1,000 true fans in such a way, or 1,000 true believers in such a way that you can reinvest in the network and make it stronger and make it more meaningful to the members, and for members to then be able to bring in more members. And you actually build out from a strong core as opposed to, lots and lots of big numbers, that are very shallow in the engagement. And lastly, you have to, find the place that you don't peak in terms of saying, hey, I'm going to create a Facebook killer. Like, nobody's going to create a Facebook killer at this point. That's not the goal. The goal is to say, as technology shifts, so as we shift technology platforms from the web to mobile, there are going to be new opportunities during that disruption and during that transformation. And then based on that transformation, how do you create something that is different, not better, but different than the status quo and where people spend their time and sort of the orthodoxy or the narrative of why people do the things they do. And I think in those different ways, you can compete effectively because you're not competing; you're actually building something new.
How do you competitive market, heart of Silicon Valley, thousands of options? How do you hire, and what do you look for that says to you this person's going to be great here?
I look for fundamentally understanding what it is the person wants to do and whether or not, and being very clear on what is the professional opportunity we can give. So we can give a very specific kind of professional opportunity to someone that if there is a fit with what they want to do, it's magical. It's beautiful. So understanding what that person wants to get out of their next chapter is the number one thing I pay attention to.
So as a CEO, you're doing a ton of things, right? You're raising money, you're managing the team, everyone comes to you, it's still a small group. How do you kind of keep in touch with your users, and how do you think about what am I missing? Where should this go? Time to think. How do you create that?
Well, I think that those are two different things. In terms of time to think, I am fortunate that I get up early and I have at least an hour in the morning before I head into the office or do anything where I literally have a practice where I sit down with a blank set of paper and a pen and think.
Every day.
Every day. Write down, what are my goals, short-term and long-term. It's not a to-do list. It's, what did I go to bed thinking about? What did I wake up thinking about? And writing it down. And just being able to make it a consistent practice, it is my form of meditation, is what makes it powerful. So I don't go into the office or even open my computer until I have sat down and really thought about my intentions for the day. And I'm fortunate that I have the ability to do that. If I had to get up an hour earlier to do it, I would still get up an hour earlier to do it. It is incredibly important, I think, for a CEO to have the whole plan in their head. Very different than a to-do list. Mm-hmm. So what I actually find is I'll sort of write down my goals. I also will spend time writing down what I'm grateful for, because it's really easy to go into the day sort of with a clearer picture of the world when you kind of have it more in balance. And then if things come up for me, I'll just write them down on the, in the upper right-hand corner of the same page, which is those things I need to do that kind of come out of this or whatever's on my mind. So I prioritize and I value thinking, because for a team to be as effective as we want it to, for our team to be as effective as we want it to be, we have to work smarter. And you can't work smarter if you're just, senselessly following a to-do list for whatever came at you for the day.
How do you find time to stay in touch with your consumer or the customer and kind of see things of where could this platform go that, 18 people can't come up with, right? But the thousands of your users will come up with things that no one's thought about. How do you keep in touch with that?
So I answer support tickets. I can do it pretty fast. I like to see kind of everything coming in. I was actually saying this to someone on our team the other day, which is the job I don't like to have is the happy customer job. I actually really think that having somebody else I actually really like taking care of the people who are unhappy. It skews my vision in terms of what we have to do and what we're doing well and what we're not doing well. But I love it. I also, because I have worked in this particular area for a while, and have understand the platform transition from web to mobile in probably a pretty unique way as it's seen through the filter of these identity networks. I can very quickly connect the dots. And I can very quickly see patterns and understand where somebody is coming from. So that then becomes really important to me to have those conversations with the people who we serve, which are the people who are creating new identity networks and really want to invest in them as something that's important to them. Those people are important to me.
Thank you for coming in. I really enjoyed the conversation, so thank you for a very unique perspective.
Thank you.
That was the conversation with Shripriya Mahesh and Gina Bianchini, the founder and CEO of Mighty Networks. Thanks so much for listening, and special thanks to Gina for all of your insights. You can learn more about Mighty Networks at mightynetworks.com, and you can follow Gina on Twitter at GinaB. If you enjoyed this episode, please write a review on iTunes and let us know what you think on Twitter at Omidyar Network. Be sure to subscribe and visit our website, omidyar.com, to learn more. Thanks for listening to Founders Corner, and we'll see you next time.